Hey everybody, welcome in. I'm going to give folks a couple of seconds to settle their audio preferences. We're really excited that so many of you guys are going to be joining us today. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
So I have been traveling all around the southern United States with my family for the last little bit. I got to visit family in Nashville, got to see some friends in Knoxville, spent some time in Western North Carolina. It's hot out there. Is anybody else hot today?
Super hot. Yeah, I took a morning walk this morning. I was just like, this is a little bit much today. But definitely feel free to engage with us in the chat. And that actually is a perfect segue because I'm going to do my little tech intro. But for those of you guys who want to share the weather that you're experiencing in whatever part of the country or the world that you're joining us from, we encourage you guys to use the chat section to engage with us. In terms of questions, we do encourage you to use that Q&A. We always have room for questions at the very end of our webinars. So feel free to use that Q&A section where you can upvote as well as comment on questions. So we are using Acro Zoom webinar, which automatically mutes your cameras as well as your mic so that it doesn't cause any possible interruption for presenters. But again, if you want to engage, again, please use that chat. And usually at this point, I would pass off the mic to the presenter, but I'm actually going to intro the Edge user group today as well. So here we go. Again, welcome you guys, and thank you guys so much for being here at our July Edge user group. Today, we have myself. I work as the International Support Specialist as well as managing webinars at Acro, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Drew Carlisle and Dave Mahali. In addition, we also have a number of our IESC board members joining us, including Jasmine, Robert, and Emily, as well as Julia and Dave on the bottom. And for those of you guys who are unfamiliar with what the IESC does, the IESC is composed of a bunch of professionals from a variety of different institutions in higher education, both public and private, as well as credential evaluation agencies. And their role within the IESC really is to collect research as well as review or prepare and approve new recommendations for all of the pages that you see within Acro Edge, including credentials, the grading scales, as well as the overviews in each country profile. And any placement recommendations published on our database represent a majority consensus vote amongst the members of our IESC board. And
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that expertise that they bring really does allow us to provide what we find as the best recommendations that you can use to inform how you're setting up your own policies within your institutions or agencies yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Drew. And before I pass the mic formally over to you, I do want to launch a quick poll just to gauge who our audience is today. So in a second here, you'll see a poll pop up on your screen, and it would be awesome to get engagement, to get a sense of who's joining us today.
They don't let me fill out the polls anymore. They said I was throwing off the numbers since I was one of the people that was here presenting. Because yes, I mean, am I an Edge subscriber? I certainly am in there and I use it every single day. This is not my first user group. And when I'm thinking about who I represent, I'm really just representing the spread of information, trying to make sure that we get all of that information to whoever is going to be able to use that in their workflows. But Christina, who's here?
Absolutely. So I'm going to keep it open for about another 15 seconds. We have about 80% engagement. Thank you to you guys who have helped in answering those questions. We'll close out the poll. And
just like we got a lot of subscribers.
Yep. It does look like we have an overwhelming majority of subscribers. It's awesome to see you guys here. This is a great space to ask questions and to know what's going on with Edge. And it's also really exciting to see that for about 36% of you guys, that this is your first Edge user group. Thank you guys so much for coming out and for engaging with us. And for those returning, thanks for coming back and checking out what we have to offer in our user group. And then in terms of segment, it looks like the overwhelming majority, 82%, are institutional staff, 16% are coming from evaluation offices, and 3% are here from government agencies. So again, welcome in, guys. I'm going to pass the mic over to Drew.
Thanks, Christina. Now, for those of you that are not currently Edge subscribers, I did want to let you know that we do offer a free trial. You can navigate to acro.org/edge. And then in the About Edge page, down at the bottom, you'll see a place where you can reach out to us and we'll get you set up with the free trial so you can get in there and see some of what we've assembled for this information. Today, in a previous user group, there was a question about Eswatini versus Swaziland. And I told you that we were looking for a technical solution to maintain that. We'll talk about what we wound up doing when we get to that slide, but we'll talk about Turkey, I believe is how would be more appropriate to pronounce it with the new guidelines and with the name change. Well, anywho, we're also going to talk about the advanced masters in Belgium. We're going to talk about the Certificate of Nile International Secondary Education, the CNISE. Might be easier for me to remember. And in Benin, we've got a few different of the Bologna styled credentials of the LMD variety that we're going to update you on that have made their way into Edge. And based on some research that former colleagues, current colleagues, and directly with the ministry, we've got information on Uzbekistan that we're really looking forward to sharing with you. We've always got some on-demand learning opportunities. If you are looking for something for you to really bolster your skills in particular regions and particular topics, those are always available. And we're going to mention one more time that Gloria R. Nathanson Fund for Research in International Education, where you do that research, you talk about those issues that are important, you get that out into the public, and we're going to see if we can defray some of those costs for you. But starting off, I think we are going to start with the name changes. Is that right, Christina?
I gotta unmute myself. Yes, 100%.
So, so Eswatini and Turkey, which were both formerly known as Swaziland and Turkey, respectively, they now have different names that are reflected as their current name within Edge. I could not find a way to maintain Swaziland as one of your choices for dropdown, but my thinking was as soon as you get in there and start to do any research on a credential where you are seeing Swaziland or Turkey with no accents and with an EY at the end, as soon as you encounter that, just a cursory bit of research is going to tell you what the accurate name of the country now is. So we weren't able to maintain a reference to Swaziland by the dropdown, but there are archived country studies that will still reference Swaziland that are going to be useful when you're encountering those older credentials. Same is true in Turkey. And that it may be easier to discern because of a translation difference that someone may not have as much difficulty recognizing that one. But we made sure to reflect that within Edge. That's one of the wondrous things about having the dynamic database. We're able to make these updates and connect things and show those connections that previously might have gotten lost. Robert, what do you want to tell us about that we also added in Belgium?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Drew. This actually came from the field, and I thought it was not necessarily an Edge user, but someone actually from the school that offered these things, specifically Lyric Business School, offering what they called an advanced masters. They had both masters and advanced masters, which of course begs the question, well, what's an advanced masters? So after doing a little bit of research on the school site, which was fairly well developed, able to come up with the information that it is basically a 1-year 60 ECTS credential that is somewhat complicated. You'd think that an advanced master's must require a master's to get in, but and it was unclear from the website for sure what the entry qualification was. So what I did was to write their admissions office, and they responded fairly quickly, telling me that you could enter it with a 3-year bachelor's from Belgium. So you didn't have to have a master's degree to get into any of their master's programs, whether regular masters or so-called advanced masters. So that told us immediately what we wanted to do with it under those circumstances. And as you can see under credential advice, that when it's preceded by that 3-year 180 ECTS degree, that additional year 60 ECTS more would equate to 240 ECTS, 4 years, and therefore a US bachelor's degree equivalent. If, on the other hand, they did the credential, the advanced masters did require a prior master's to get in, and Emily found one of those. For some reason, I was looking only at the business school, whereas Emily started searching other Belgian schools and came up with one from University Antwerp that was an advanced master's in a medical specialization, and it required a master's. You had to have a master's degree to get into that. So that meant that we had to bifurcate the credential advice. So if you enter it with a 3-year degree, we have one outcome. If you enter with a 4-year degree prior to that, or not prior master's, then it would be comparable to the US master's degree. As it stands alone, it's simply a year of advanced study. And the reason we say advanced study as opposed to graduate study is because while it may seem to be quote unquote graduate credit from the US perspective, the IESC EDGE perspective, it could be the so-called senior year, the 4th year of a US bachelor's degree, and therefore it would be advanced undergraduate credit. I'm actually looking at it in EDGE now, so it looks like Drew got that up fairly quickly after we dealt with this in the IESC, and so you can actually go in to EDGE Belgium and find this credential and this description as well, much more detailed than what we have on the slide here. With that, Drew, I'll give it back to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Here we have the Certificate of Nile International Secondary Education, or the CNISE, which was first awarded in Egypt in 2017. So it's a newish credential, and we received an EDGE user query about this, and we had it placed in EDGE. This is a 3-year program taught in both Arabic and English following grade 9. So this represents the completion of secondary education and a total of 12 years of elementary and secondary education. The curriculum was jointly developed by Cambridge Assessment International Education and the Education Development Fund in Egypt. So as a refresher, a reminder for some of you who may not know, Cambridge Assessment International Education, formerly Cambridge International Education, is the largest awarding body of IGCSEs, international AS levels, international A levels. This credential is recognized by the Ministry of Education in Egypt. In fact, you will see its logo at the top left-hand corner of the certificate next to box number 1. It is administered by the Nile International Education System, or NIES, with some support from Cambridge. And it is also jointly awarded by NIES and Cambridge Assessment. So in fact, you will see references to Cambridge underneath the name of the credential on the certificate near box 2. And you'll see in near box 3 that it's also a co-signer. On to the next slide. This program is taught at Nile Egyptian schools, which are under the Ministry of Education in Egypt. And the idea behind this program is that it was designed to prepare Egyptian students for both the national and international stage. So whatever they wanted to choose at the end, they would have both. It's been benchmarked in terms of the 3 levels that you will find their subjects in. Level 1 is benchmarked as comparable to GCSEs. Level 2 is benchmarked as comparable to AS levels, and then level 3 is benchmarked as comparable to A levels. Unlike GCSEs and A levels, there's only one certificate that's awarded at the very end of the 12-year cycle. but then you will see all the subjects that were examined on and the levels they were at. In terms of the equivalency in EDGE, it's regarded as comparable to completion of senior high school in the United States with possible advanced standing credit. So that's the CNISE. Now we're going to move on to Benin, onto the next slide. And you'll find that the Francophone countries in Africa are adopting the Bologna compliant LMD system that you find in France at various levels and various, I guess, pacings. There was a query received about Benin, so we decided it was time to update the Benin profile in EDGE. The government there actually adopted the LMD system in 2010. So to the left, you'll see the first page of the decree that was issued by the government regarding the adoption of the LMD system. So it's what you would find in France. So the first cycle, 3-year licence, the second cycle, 2-year master, and the third cycle, 3-year doctorat, with the corresponding ECTS credits. Now the licence pre-Bologna was actually 1 year after the DUG, but now with the Bologna compliant version, it's just a straight 3 years, 180 ECTS credits. And you'll find actually also a licence professionnelle as well as a master professionnelle. And when you see that terminology, it's a designation for the more applied versions, meaning they are meant to prepare students for a particular profession or develop a specialization in a particular profession. This higher education system we would normally think of as a 3+2+3, but in the Francophone world, it's regarded as the 358 because they're thinking of it cumulatively. So for example, the second cycle master, although it's 2 years typically, represents a total of 5 years of higher education. So for that reason, in terms of terminology, they refer to as the 358 system. And that's it for Benin.
Hi, we're moving on to Uzbekistan now. And whereas we had 2 pathways to university, there's a third path that has been added. These are all via the National Higher Education Admission Examination. And just for historical background, upon breaking away from the USSR, Uzbekistan maintained the original 9-year 9+2, we can call it, system, and they kept that until 2009, the 2008/2009 academic year. But in 2009, they went to a 3-year system for their academic and vocational stream, and now they're going back as of actually 5 years ago to a 9+2 system again. So the important thing to remember is that we have 3 paths to university, and one is the Diploma of Academic Lyceum. Second one is the Diploma of Professional College. Some people call this vocational college. A third way is a brand new type of school, which is an 11-year integrated school. So you have grades 1 through 11, all going to school in the same building, essentially. And that's the Certificate of General Secondary Education. All of the first 3 listed on this slide lead to the student taking the National Higher Ed admission examination. The fourth one that's listed here is just kind of a caveat for people who might be seeing these credentials. Anyone who completes the academic lyceum curriculum, so they essentially graduate, they've completed all the courses, gets this certificate of academic lyceum, not a diploma, but a certificate. And the certificate is part of a movement when the new president came in 2016 to give people some kind of a credential that they can actually use for employment upon completion of the academic secondary stream. It does not lead to university. It does not qualify them necessarily, mean that they've taken the the national secondary exam for admission to higher education. It's just an employment credential. It's not issued after the professional school. It's only issued after the academic lyceum curriculum. And so we have now 3 paths that are going to show up toward university and EDGE. And with the addition of a 4th credential, which is kind of a look-alike false friend, as we would say in French, looks very similar, but it doesn't mean what you might think it means. And with that, I will turn it back to the moderators.
The first thing that that comes to mind is that I think I mentioned earlier, man, it is hot out there. I understand that a lot of you are wanting to just stay inside during the hottest part of the day, turn that air conditioner on. One of the things you can do is you can go in and you can access some on-demand training right from the comfort of your desk. You can keep it as warm, as cold as you particularly like it. And there are different countries that we have available. There are different regions that we have available, philosophical approaches to how you would deal with external exam-based systems. Francophone Africa, the Soviet system that was just being referenced a moment ago. We've got a whole lot of stuff that's available for you to take a look at. And like I said, you can do it from the comfort of your own seat there. Available at any time, and it'll walk you through. At the end, you do earn badges. So you have that in line with what Uzbekistan was saying. You want to have something that you can walk away with and explain, I have this knowledge in this area. Acro is the one that's been training me on it. And another option that we have, Christina, I believe that we're also going to be talking about the Gloria Nathanson Fund. If you are interested in this, please do reach out to us at edge@acro.org. If you want to do a full country profile workup, we've got a couple that are in the works right now. We're really thankful to everyone that's doing that research. Substantive country updates, if there's a particular part of a system that really needs better explanation. White papers on particular areas of interest, that's also the type of thing that can get funded through Gloria Nathanson. But reach out to us and we'll see what we can do to help defray some of those costs. I think we wanted to have a lot of time for questions. We assumed there would be a few questions coming in about the CNISE, since that's a relatively new credential. Christina, I'm not looking down at the Q&A. Do we have anything assembled, ready to go for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for covering those 2 opportunities. Again, we encourage you guys to check out both the online courses as well as the research fund. And at the end of our slides, you'll have a full list of QR codes that you can use your phones or computers to scan and go straight to those pages. We do have a couple questions. The first one's coming from Mary Naff, and she's asking, will ACRO have an International Credential Summer Institute? That is a question, I believe, for Dave or for Julia.
So I know that the International Institute, we were going to have more options that were available through on-demand courses. I'm not sure if we have rescheduled what was going to take place earlier this year. Mary, we can get back to you and give you more information on that. But I would look to see if any of the courses in that on-demand are what you're looking for. We can talk more offline though. Dave?
I'll just bounce in there and say there is no rescheduling of the International Summer Institute as it was to occur this summer, as of now, and probably won't be this summer. So that's the answer to that.
Awesome, thanks for the input. Again, the online courses aren't necessarily a direct substitute, but they are a really great tool for teams at institutions to check out for some of the things that would have been covered in that Summer Institute. A question coming from Leah McCormick is for Emily, I believe, and she's asking for the Egyptian CNISE. There we go. Do you need to see 5 exam passes on this at level 1 to be considered comparable, similar to GCSEs, or is the awarding of the certificate sufficient for high school exam or high school, excuse me, comparability regardless of the number of exams.
Yeah, hi, Leah. So although the subjects and the exams are benchmarked at the level of GCSEs, AS levels, and A levels respectively, in terms of the credentialing, it's administered a little differently. So what happens is level 1 is typically, those exams are typically taken at the end of year 10, level 2 the end of year 11, and level 3 the end of year 12. However, the credential itself, the certificate, the CNISE, is not issued and awarded until the very end, the end of that 12-year system. So it's unlike the UK system where we're used to having to look for individual subject passes. As you mentioned, 5 subject passes for GCSEs or 2 subject passes for A levels. It's not really structured that way. So as long as you get the CNISE, you'll know that that is the end of secondary education in Egypt for that program. And if you wanted to, you could give consideration for some advanced level credit given the benchmarking. But at the end, it's the end of secondary education.
Thank you, Emily. And we did have a couple questions talking about if we missed an EDGE user group session, is there a place that we can view it at a later time? Olga and then an anonymous attendee had asked, and that's a great question. So the same place that you go to register for these EDGE user groups is where you're going to find the recordings. We do work in partnership with our communications team who upload, I'm pretty sure on a monthly basis, the different webinars that ACRO hosts throughout the month. And so you would be able to find the recordings on the same pages that you register with.
And I've just included down in the chat the link to our webinar archive. So once everyone does get all the recordings up, it can take anywhere from a day to a week, depending on what the backlog is looking like and how much information is going to be uploaded. Some of the videos are pretty long and we want to make sure that they're at good quality for everyone. So it normally takes a day to a week. There have been some that have taken a month, but once they get up there, they are there in perpetuity. You can go to the webinar archive and go access everything at no cost to you. Just go ahead and see if there's anything valuable. There's EDGE user groups. There are things, there are other international webinars when we've had conversations with different ministries or examination boards where we were sharing information, plus a lot of webinars that ACRO has to offer as well that are outside of the international sphere, but still may have application for you in your offices.
Thank you, Drew. To that point, Nicole was also asking, I've been looking for some trainings in recognizing fraudulent documents. Which module would be best, please? And to Drew's point, we actually did have an awesome webinar, I want to say 2 or 3 months back, that was in partnership with the authors who put out the Bogus Institutions publication in partnership with ACRO, which really focused on how to tackle fraudulent documents, as well as recognizing those diploma mill strategies and ways to be aware of them and to combat them, because they're quite common. So if actually, because I'm sharing my screen, if someone else could share a link to that publication as well as the recording in the chat, that would be awesome. But Nicole, that is where I would recommend starting. And in addition to that, I also want to plug our international activities listserv, because that's another really great community space that's all worked on through email, where you can email our community and ask these questions and see how other institutions are handling it for themselves. So if you haven't joined our international listserv, that QR code for joining is actually going to be provided at the end. Actually, I can zoom on over. Right in that middle QR code, join our international activities listserv is where you're going to want to look, Nicole. And thanks for those links, both Drew and Julie. I appreciate it. Rachel had asked in a previous session, you all had mentioned that you were working on a resource to indicate which exam-based systems have online verification available. Is there any news on this project?
So I can tell you that that is something that already does get integrated as I'm made aware of any changes. We'll go ahead and put that over onto profiles in the resources section. And if there's anything that is not currently reflected that should be there, on every page with an edge, there's a place where you can reach out to us. And if you let us know updates that need to happen, as long as you're including your rationale in there as well, give us the research for what this why you believe that this is something that is not reflected in the profile. We can make that change in there pretty quickly. When there is less research provided, it's going to take longer for that to work its way through. But check over on the resources and then in the key resources section. That would be one of those links that we're going to try to keep right at the top, because we understand that one of the things you're looking to do is make sure that what the documents are that you're looking at are appropriate. That's the best way that I can do that. Emily, do you have other suggestions on some other resources that are outside of Edge?
Yeah. So two things. First is there is an organization called TICEP, TAICEP .org. TICEP has a database that is, oh gosh, the name has changed due to trademarking issues, but I think it's the Credentials Providers Hub. And this database is helpful for a number of things in terms of providers of digital documents by country, as well as online verification portals like WIAC that you've referenced, Rachel. So that database is a great resource for that purpose, but it's only available, unfortunately, to members. And that's with TICEP. If you're interested specifically in WIAC and WASC, I know ACRO had a really good webinar, which was co-presented by Leslie, one of our current IESC members. And that was, because time blurs for me, it was either in 2020 or 2021, but it was a webinar. And yes, don't laugh at me, Drew. Co-presented.
Emily. I'm laughing with.
Yes,
I understand.
oh goodness.
It could just as easily be Wednesday in 2020 as it is Thursday in 2022.
But it was an ACRO webinar, and Leslie was a co-presenter on that. And it was a great presentation on all the updates and all the different verification sites and scratch cards for the 5 member countries.
Thanks, Emily. And actually, while you're on camera, I want to throw you a couple more CNISE questions.
Sure.
Mine. The first one's coming from Aletha. They're asking, will the CNISE certificate shown today be made available in ACRO Edge as a document sample?
Yes, if it hasn't been posted yet, it will be. This was actually, they call it specimen, we call it sample documents. They call it specimen over in Britain, and Cambridge did give us the go ahead and permission to post. So that should be there shortly.
Specimen is such an interesting word.
Yeah,
okay.
It's very medical sounding, yeah.
Definitely. And Leah also had a question. She said, thank you, Emily. She's asking, so could someone leave after grade 10 and earn the CNISE?
Oh yeah, no, that's not possible. So it's very linear in Egypt. So they have to finish the full 12-year cycle, so to speak, and then at that point they will earn the CNISE. It's not as though you can just finish ahead of time and take it at the end of year 10 or year 11. It does not work that way in Egypt.
Okay, thank you. And I did have one more question for you, Emily. I'm just going to keep hitting you with CNISE questions. Laura's asking, would the English pass on the CNISE be considered equivalent to a pass on the English GCSEs in terms of proficiency? We require 5 passes on GCSEs, including English for both high school and English language proficiency waivers.
You can look at it that way. So for a level 1 English subject pass, you could regard that as equivalent to a GCSE pass in English. So this was a determination made by Cambridge Assessment International Education, which was one of the bodies that co-award this and co-developed this. And there was also an independent study made by UK NARIC, now known as ECCTIS, and they also made the determination that they're comparable. So if you see a level 1 subject pass in English, you can regard that as equivalent to a GCSE pass in English.
Thank you. Awesome. And let me see real quick. There's one person raising their hand. I gotta go through and find it. Elizabeth, I just unmuted you. If you want to ask the question verbally, please go ahead and unmute. Typing is also definitely an option. Alrighty, so maybe that was an accident. I've definitely accidentally raised my hand before, so absolutely no worries. And again, Elizabeth, if you want to come off mute, please feel free. Rachel did ask a question. They said, will there be any webinars or learning opportunities specifically regarding international transfer credit, recognizing accreditation and credit hours?
Let's see. Thinking off the top of my head, we are in the midst of lots of webinars. I'm not certain if there are any specifically regarding international transfer credit. Maybe Dave will be able to back me up if he can think of any that would specifically pertain to that coming up. I think that's an on-demand course that we have available though with some of those principles, but I can't think of a webinar that we have. Dave?
Yeah, well, within the canned content, there are several that would touch on that, including the basics and then the individual country ones. But unfortunately, I have to say that we just did have a session specifically on transfer credit from international credentials at the Acro Tech and Transfer Conference, which was last week. And so that I don't believe is available out there for everyone to consume.
I believe that's available for attendees for at least
Right.
60 days following, but I don't believe that that is available the same way that our webinars. Our webinar archive is going to remain there for everyone, but those sessions that you're talking about, Dave, I think you're right that those are for the attendees.
I will just say that we're receptive to suggestions for things to cover in future webinars, and we'll definitely keep that in mind because that's kind of a frequent flyer in terms of questions from people in admissions. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it, but I don't think there's one specifically on the schedule for the near future.
Well, hey, Dave, as long as you're right here, Emily's posed a question about provisional degrees from Nepal. How were those used in the admission process?
I see
there's nothing
that
listed there.
So we at Acro have traditionally treated the provisional certificate from Nepal in exactly the same manner that we would treat it from India. And it serves basically the same function, although I think Nepal never had quite the degree of degree issue lag that India has. But the provisional certificate is valid for any purpose that a degree certificate or a degree convocation certificate would be used up until the point that the degree is issued, which brings us into a wrinkle. If you've got somebody applying with a provisional certificate that's many years old, that person should have probably received the degree by now, unless they weren't going to pay some kind of a fee or jump through some kind of administrative hoop. So I would say that a provisional certificate that's more than 1.5 or 2 years old should be replaced and with the actual degree certificate. One more thing I would mention is that, and this is not specific to Nepal, but since I mentioned India, I'll just say that now sometimes the institution will pro forma issue a provisional certificate with a transcript or with mark sheets, which does not mean that the degree hasn't been awarded. So it's a little bit cloudy there. But in Nepal, I would say they're acceptable for a space of 1.5 to 2 years max. And then for me, I would prefer to see the actual degree certificate after that time.
Thank you, Dave. Alrighty, and Nahu is asked, I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name, but there was a question coming in asking, will you explain again what's the difference between TICEP and ACRO exactly? That's a great question.
So Emily, would you like to talk a little bit about TICEP and the space that they occupy?
Yes. So and I'll do my best on ACRO too, and then you can supplement that if you need that. So with ACRO, the organization supports the work of both registrars and admissions officers, and it's at the national and international level in terms of dealing with national or international credentials, and that can also deal with things like the tech side, if you will. TICEP is an organization devoted to supporting the work of credentials evaluators specifically. So it could be registrars or admissions officers that do credential evaluation work. So it focuses solely on reviewing international transcripts and diplomas, but it's for those professionals who do that work in any country. So it could be someone who does this work in a government agency in Europe or in a university in Canada. It does not matter where they do that work as long as their work involves reviewing international credentials. It could be a licensing agency as well. So there are members, for example, from teacher licensure, pharmacy, physical therapy, licensure boards who are our members as well. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Emily. We did get a question from Robin, excuse me, and they're asking, in one of the previous sessions, this link was mentioned for verifying Ukrainian documents. It only appears to be in Ukrainian. Is there an English version, or is there a different way to navigate the verification of Ukrainian documents? So I think the second part of that question is a great one to pass off, but if you want to leave your email in the chat, chatting the panelists directly, Robin, we can follow up with you and take a closer look at that that link. Something that I use frequently is I use Google Chrome, and with Google Chrome there is an awesome plugin that will translate the pages for you. I will, if you drop your email in, I'll definitely send information on how to download that plugin because it's super, super helpful. But we'll follow up. But to that second question, is anybody else on our panelists, amongst our panelists, able to answer? Is there a different way to navigate the verification of Ukrainian documents? Because this is definitely a pertinent question.
So I am just going to put out my consistent plug for when you're able to deal with native language documents, you're always going to get the most accurate information because you're not getting any translation bias or anything. Nothing is lost in translation there. But for those of us that don't speak Cyrillic, who don't have that programmed into your computer, there are ways that you can temporarily set your computer to behave and print out Cyrillic characters. That's something that you can do from the technological side. If you just need to go through the Cyrillic alphabet, is something that you would be able to go through and do that. And there are a lot of online translation systems that can take Cyrillic and put it into a Romanized version. When we're dealing with different documents and different files with Edge, one of the things that we thought about was that it's important that we put the Romanized version of the credential out there primarily because that is what most of our users' keyboards do most of the time. But for we have a lot of new entries within Serbia, for example, and that includes a lot of native language characters that are written out there. And so it is more difficult to go through, but you are able to ensure that you are getting 100% that right information. But I'm like you, Robin, I'm not that great with Cyrillic.
Can I just jump in, Drew? The last time I looked at the link for verification, which was when Tatiana McKenna did her presentation on it, on how to use it, and she actually verified her own documents. I had hit the translate within Chrome up on the top of the browser, and it actually just translated it for me in real time. And you're still able to put the information into the boxes. Does it asks for the diploma number, it asks for the name of the person, and just that kind of basic information, and it all showed up in English, and you were able to get the result by clicking on that translated box. So I think it should work. Last time I tried it, it was functional in English.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great to know that that functionality is available. And since Christina is going to be able to send that information over to Robin, that's also something that anyone else that heard that, it sounds like the Chrome extension of Google Translate will do that translation for you. Are there any other questions that we have out there? Any topics that you've been thinking about? We have a couple members of the IESC present with us. If you have any questions about the way that Edge itself works, this is your opportunity to connect with us directly.
I actually want to go back to Robin's question real quick, because we answered, I think, the language barrier part sometimes, and trying to sift through the Cyrillics, it gets really confusing. So using that Google Translate plugin is a great resource, but also from a political standpoint, it is getting access to documents has been a question that we've received in our inbox quite a bit, saying, given how difficult it is to access students from Ukraine and their documents, what's the best practice? A lot of people have been emailing ACRO about that. And to be honest, we don't have currently a stance in terms of best practice, but we really do encourage you to reach out to institutions, because it is per institution, saying, okay, given the information that we have, how can we move forward? And also, as someone who oversees webinars, we really encourage you guys to reach out. If you guys at your institution do have a system in place, please feel free to email us directly. I'm going to put my email in the chat, and proposals for webinars and opportunities to collaborate where you can share what you're doing at your institution are really valuable, and help us to put together a kind of a pathway where there isn't one as a team, because we are really learning right alongside you. So I'm going to put my email right in there. And if you have a system at your institution that handles this specific to what's going on in Ukraine, please go ahead and reach out to us. And again, plug into that international activities listserv. Emily also, go ahead, Drew.
I was going to say, Emily came in with a little bit of a follow-up, looking in response to the provisional certificate question. So Dave, I'm going to see if I can pull you back here on screen for just a moment. I know that you're already typing that answer out, but what do you think? Do you think that Emily should get a copy of that certificate down the line? Do you think that Emily should look at institutional policies that she already has regarding if you have accepted, say, a student coming out of high school, even though they haven't gotten their degree yet, do you still look at that degree? It's possible that Emily would already have guidelines that exist within her own institution that could help inform what a best practice could be.
Right. I mean, well, it's short answer to your question, Drew, is really all of the above, I think. I think that when you're making an admission decision based on provisional documentation, you should always request that the applicant follow up with the real document at such time as it's issued. That kind of presupposes that you're prodding them to actually have it issued if it hasn't been issued already. And I would say that it adds another layer of work for the admissions person at the U.S. institution to do, unfortunately, because then you're in the position of having to follow up with them and say, please get that to us. So I think, a firm deadline, if you can put one on it, is fine, but the student may come back and say, well, see the letter that I've written, see the correspondence that I've done, I can't get it yet. And you really just have to kind of keep up with them. But we at ACRO, when we do evaluations, to the extent that we still do them, we'll often just put in language that's kind of exhorting the institution to get the official document when they can. but that our report is based on provisional information. So I think that's fair. It's really, you know, we require certain things of certain students. If you're never going to request, you know, official confirmation of a degree from some country, then it's hard to justify asking for it from another one. But usually, you know, provisional admission we will do, like for high school students, when, you know, by the time they get their diploma, you know, they're really admitted and everything's done, and no one cares. You're doing it, you know, based on really the first semester of that last senior year. In this kind of case where it's a degree that they have, I think you should always ask for it. So a short answer is yes, we should ask for it. And yes, you can go ahead, you know, with the unofficial version while knowing that you're still asking for the real one.
Yeah. Yep. And it sounds like you really can develop what that policy is going to be so that it gets applied equally wherever it's coming in from, like you said, whatever country, you can apply something similar.
Right.
Thank you,
Well,
guys. We did have another question come in with an anonymous attendee asking, for Guinea, the ACRO grading tab provides equivalencies for a 20-point grading system. However, there are many institutions from Guinea with transcripts on a 10-point grading system. Any chance this country will be revised to add the 10-point grading? Just curious, and thank you. Thank you for your question first and foremost. We really do encourage you guys to email any redacted transcripts to us so that we can take a closer look and have these added. So this is a great plug again to just, if you have questions about specific things that aren't reflected in EDGE, if you have those transcripts and you make sure again that they're redacted, protecting your students and applicants' information, we can take a closer look with our IESC and have those reflected in EDGE. So I'll put in our email.
Yeah, so the IESC, as we mentioned earlier, is going to be doing primary source research and making those consensus-driven decisions on credentials, on grading scales. Those things we need actual. We need data points so that we can be sure that we're giving appropriate information. So if you have those documents that show that 10-point grading scale, that's really helpful to send over. Like we're going to go in and we're going to look at what the law is. Where was it actually decreed that this is something that is appropriate from this educational system? Did this actually change? Was this just at one particular institution? Those are all different considerations that are happening. And so the more information that can be provided, the sooner the Guinea grading scale would be looked at, and any appropriate changes would be reflected in EDGE as we're making them. Robert mentioned earlier, he was saying how quickly everything got uploaded. That's what we can really do with EDGE. We really can be flexible and responsive when we learn new things. And all of you that are getting all of the documents onto your desks or your digital desktop, however you're doing it, you have more eyes, and so we really do appreciate all that information that you share with us. Anything else coming in today, Christina? Or is that pretty much the extent of what we have for questions from everybody?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything new, but I do want to give it a couple minutes because sometimes people have those last minute questions that they want to slide in. Again, we've put our email in the chat with alongside a number of links that we've mentioned. So please definitely go ahead and reference those. Elizabeth, I wanted to come back around. I know that you had raised your hand a bit ago, so I want to make sure that I'm not missing a question and giving you the opportunity to speak. So if you want to type anything or come off of mute, please feel free, but we'll go ahead and just stick around for a couple more minutes. Oh, thank you for the clarification. Got it. Figured it was an accident. Thanks, Elizabeth. But
I saw Alyssa raise Alyssa's hand earlier, expressing I think sympathy with me with how hot it was. I saw that one, but I think that one was on purpose.
Okay, yeah, it is definitely really, really hot out there. But again, we will stick around for a couple more minutes, just in case any last minute questions come through. But to our panelists,
Christina, sorry, I figured this might be a good opportunity to also mention that the call for proposals is out for the 2023 annual meeting. That's due, I think, August 31st. So if there's any interest in presenting or any topics that you would like to see presentations on, you could email those over.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because there's actually a webinar that we hosted yesterday with our meetings director, Becky Fowkes, alongside two of our program committee chairs, who walked through how to submit a proposal, the changes that have been made. And again, with international, because this topic is so complicated and tends to be in the background because a lot of the transcripts coming in at your desks are domestic, we always encourage more international annual meeting topics to be brought up, because there are a lot of people with a lot of questions, and I'm sure that with your knowledge there are answers that could be shared. So definitely, if you have any questions regarding that or would like information about how to submit a proposal, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get you connected to the right folks within ACRO to help you get that proposal in. But we do have about 4 minutes, so I'm going to give it 2 more minutes. And if there's not any more questions, we'll go ahead and give you 2 minutes back of your afternoon. But guys, again, thank you so much to our panelists, to our IESC board. Thank you guys for all the hard work that you do, and to our attendees, thank you for your engagement and your questions and your participation with us. It's much, much, much appreciated.
Thanks, guys. Stay cool.
Alrighty, guys, and with no further questions, to the 11 people still in the room, thank you guys again for being here. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your afternoon, and we will see you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.